Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast. This podcast is ran by two ladies who play games, mumble profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast. My name is Jenn.
And my name is Emily. Yes, another week has gone by, and we are here once again for your listening pleasure. How are you, Jen? How's it hanging?
I am doing all right. It has been, this year is so weird. It is not at all how I was expecting this year to go down, but here we are.
Are things at least significantly better now than how your January started?
I mean, I don't think it could, it could have gone worse. So I won't say that because I might be cursed still. But, yeah, it's been going fine. I'll leave it at that.
All right.
What about you, Em?
How am I doing? I don't know, man. Like I said, I got that work from home life where the most entertaining thing I see day to day is my cats doing literal backflips off the couch, which is cool and entertaining. But probably not that interesting for most people. And then over the weekend I did my home duties. You get your groceries and you clean the house and you do other things. And but that's all I got. Oh, I did go to get groceries. And it was funny because I was thinking about how people are beefing about eggs right now. They're like, the eggs that's gold, the blah, blah, blah. And while I was out, I was looking at the prices of things. It is not just eggs. Everything is so expensive right now. Butter and milk and even produce. I normally get say a box of cherry tomatoes for $6, and it's a pretty hefty box of cherry tomatoes. And I went to go get the same one, and they bumped it up to 13, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's a lot for these little tomatoes. And
that's over double.
That is over double. And other random things too. I went to get tater tots, and the only priced tater tots that were reasonable totally sold out. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'll try a different brand, right? So I'm looking at the rest of these tater tots, and it's the same fucking thing. It's $13 for a bag of tater tots, $14 for a bag of tater tots. And I'm like, what are we have
potatoes supposed to be the cheap food?
That was my thing. I'm like, are we in a potato famine? The egg and potato famine? Is that where we are? No more green eggs and ham? We're past that?
Yeah, you may eat nothing because everything is expensive actually right now.
Pretty much. So by the time I was done my grocery trip, I'd spent almost $500, and I was looking at my 9 bags of groceries that I had, and I was like, this feels very little for how much I just spent. And then I was cranky. And I was like, this is definitely an almost 30-year-old type thing to be mad about. Which is so...
Nah, I think everyone should be mad.
That was my thing. I was like, anybody who's grown and has to see the prices in the grocery store, I'm just apologizing to everybody because I get it. I am just so sorry for everybody who has to look at the price of raspberries and weep silently because that was me. I know exactly what's going on.
Oh, that is freaking brutal, my dude. I have no words. I feel like every time I've gone grocery shopping, I just I'm starting to not look at the prices because it's my only coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's hard too, because then it's if there's things that you need or you eat regularly or whatever else, and then you're looking at the price of it and you're thinking to yourself, you're like, wow, this is not the same as what it normally is, and then you just bum yourself out and you're like, man, fuck this nonsense. But yeah, and then the temptation to put it back, but then you're going through checkout and you're like, I have nothing. None of the things I need I could buy.
I know. It's crazy. It's genuinely crazy.
Right?
But
major depressy.
So depressed.
Yeah. But that's my week this last week. This is my time. Like I said, cats, work, and having internal struggles about groceries, but that I feel that checks out for most people.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. I booked my plane tickets to Glendale, Arizona, because I'm going to the Taylor Swift Eras tour in March, and I'm so excited.
I'm excited for you. That's going to be so much fun. I am demanding a like play-by-play video photo experience of the whole thing from the second you leave till the second you come back, because I know you're going to have an awesome time.
I will. I'll vlog solely for you, Emily.
Yeah, I want you to literally to just pick up your camera and be like, "Hey, it's Jen. Here's what I'm doing today." And I just want that over and over again.
Perfect. I can provide that for you. Just for you.
Amazing. I love that for myself. Well, I mean, in that case, since we don't have anything super fantastically amazing to talk about, we should get into our wheel of questions, because I have no idea what your story is today, and I am very curious.
Yes, well, spin away, and we'll see if the wheel provides the knowledge you seek.
The wheel provides.
Were you ever approached as a kid by someone who you think may have been trying to take advantage of you?
Oh, absolutely.
Like an adult.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I've had so many weird experiences in life, dude. Like, I remember, actually, you know how when we used to be neighbors, my parents used to be so worried about a man snatching me out of the front yard? Well, I was talking about it with my mom once, and she's like, yeah, I remember once, like, you were out on a bike ride, and this guy, like, stopped you in front of our house and was, like, chatting you up, and it was just, like, a dude, like, an adult dude on the street, and I was like, what? Because I have no recollection of this, right? But then I, like, think back on my life about other random things about, like, just being a kid and existing in public, and, like, people chatting you up at, like, the pool, and, like, other random places, and I'm like... You see, as a kid, you don't even, like, remember, really, because you're like, oh, yeah, like, I'm in public with people. People will probably talk to me at some point. But then as a grown person, I'm like, I would never go up to a person's random, like, 8-year-old at the pool and be like, hey, like, are you kids having fun? What are you doing? Like...
I know. I'm, like, as an adult woman, I would never approach a child. Unless it was like an emergency situation and I thought that they needed help.
Oh yeah, like distress or like a medical issue where you're like, okay, somebody needs to help this child and it's gonna be me because I see this happening. Yeah, like that checks out. Yeah. But if it's just like kids enjoying themselves in public or doing other random bullshit, it's like there is no reason to have to talk to anybody. There's no reason for it.
None.
Mind your damn business.
Zero.
But yes, I do have, like, vague memories of, like, being approached as a kid. Thankfully, nothing crazy happening. But, like, that, and then also my mom sharing stories of just, like, people being weird in public. So, but I mean, that all checks out for, like, like weirdos as we know them today.
That's true.
What about yourself?
I feel like it happened a few times, like, where I was approached by, like, a strange man as a kid. But there's, like, one that sticks out in particular. I think I was, like, 13 because I just started working at a food place in the mall in our hometown. Yep. And it was, like, the dead mall. You know which one I'm talking about.
It's still dead, but...
But I remember it was like 8 p.m. and I was working the closing shift, and this like older man came up to me and he was like ordering or whatever, and then I was like waiting for his food to come out and he was just like making chit chat with me, which was fine. And he's like, oh, like how old are you? And he's like, 'cause you look like 21. And I was like, oh, I'm actually like 13. And he's like, oh, you don't look 13.
Gross. And like, why is it the same thing all the time where like if the age question comes up, they're like, oh, you don't look 11 or 13 or whatever, 12, 15. And it's like grody. It's so grody. I hate it.
I remember at the time I was like, oh, yeah, I don't look young. Like I look mature for my age. But now looking back, I'm like, This man.
Well, especially if it's like if you remember the age you were, it's certain like experiences and that sort of thing. Like I remember getting like a weird comment too from like a man when I was like 15, where he also like was like, "Oh yeah, you look like for sure like you're like 21 or something." And then I look back on photos of me when I was that age, and I'm like, that is not a 21-year-old. No way in hell.
I know, like I looked young, sir.
Oh yeah.
I looked my age.
Big barfaroni. And with that, should we spin for our next question?
Spin away. Have you ever escaped a dangerous situation?
Yeah.
Do tell.
Weirdly enough, though, this wasn't like when I was a child, because like I feel like our listeners probably know at this point, like my childhood I spent like locked down for the most part. So there wasn't honestly that many like dangerous situations I was in, unless it was like I don't know, like a natural disaster, not like people created danger. But like I do actually have a memory where I was 18 and I went to a party of one of my cousins who I was really close to at the time. And this was with a bunch of people because she spent a lot of her childhood and teenage years growing up in a small town outside of the place that we're from. And so she had a lot of these friends who were coming into town, and she was like, oh yeah, you know, like they're going to be visiting their other friends, they're having a party. It's been a few years since I've seen them. I'd love to bring you along and introduce you to them. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And it ended up being this situation where it was literally, and this is why we have our disclaimer, folks, a crack house. And I'm not saying that because like of the like image of a crack house. I am saying that when you walked in, like there was no front door. The front door was gone. They had like a screen hanging up and like just a bunch of people doing coke all over the place, and I was like,
Ooh. That doesn't sound nice.
No, and like just talking with these people too, like you could tell they were like cranked out on stuff. And like all these other things, and I was like, yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about this. And then like there was this one guy, and I don't really know if he had just been taking like different types of substances or if he already had a problem. But there was this guy that even like my cousin who came there with it, that even she never knew. He was like a guy that just like somebody else brought, and he started going ape shit and like breaking furniture and like tearing apart the kitchen. And I remember, like, being in a panic because I was closest to the back door. And I walked back out there, and, like, my cousin came with me, so it wasn't like I was out there alone. But we went down the stairs thinking that the backyard was empty, and there was a man who was holding a bladeless chainsaw and smoking, sitting underneath the stairs. And then he was like, "What are you doing at my house?" And he fires up the chainsaw and chased us out of the backyard.
What?
And I was like, dude, you can't be real. Like, you brought me here? I don't fucking trust you anymore, you dingling. What was this? Because she was like, yeah, like, none of these people were like this, like, when I was in school with them. But when she was in school with these people, she would have been, like, 12, right? And we were 18. And I was like, no more. I think I'm done. I will meet no more of your old friends. This is it for me. I'm good.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, like,
we're done here.
This is over. From now on, if people want to meet with you, let's try, like, in public.
Yeah, let's just meet at a Starbucks.
Yeah, like, call that good, right? But anyway, so that was me escaping a potentially dangerous situation, because I'm pretty sure everybody in that building was just, like, unhinged. I'm, like, convinced.
They sound pretty unhinged to me.
Yes. In multiple ways. Not sure. Like I said, mentally, could be drugs, could just be regular unhinged. Not sure. Either way.
We'll never know.
That shit crazy. Well, what about you? Have you escaped any potentially dangerous situations?
I think I've told this story on the podcast once before, a few years ago, but I'll just say it quickly again for anyone who didn't listen to the episode, because I don't even know when it was. But I think I was telling you, in grade 8, I was fundraising for a French trip, because we had to do like these fundraisers in order to go on the trip or whatever. and I was like selling fucking meat or something.
Yeah, I've done
and
that.
I went up to one of the houses in our neighborhood, and it's like this old man who answered, and he kept trying to coax me inside, and I was like in the doorway, and then he started blocking the door so I couldn't get out, and like trying to keep me there. And I remember I ran home so fast because he like wouldn't let me leave, and I was like out a little past when my mom wanted me out, but I was like, oh, this will be my last stop because it had already kind of gotten dark. And I just remember feeling so uncomfortable because he kept trying to like, you know, like when someone's like slowly pushing you further into their house.
Yeah, like edging you and kind of like closing the door behind you and like moving behind you and like all these other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it was that situation. I was so uncomfy, and I remember I like slipped past him and like opened the door and just fucking bolted.
Yep. Well, and that's a good thing too anyways, because could you imagine if you were like, say, worried about offending him or something? Like, you might be telling a different story today.
Or I might not be telling any story at all.
Ooh. But yeah, no, I actually, because I obviously know what you're talking about. We've talked about it over the years. But yeah, no, I actually think about it a lot because it's so strange to me how like you think you're okay because you're like, oh, I'm just a few houses down from like where I live, my like everyday life, and then like people like that are around, and it's like it's very creepy. Like, I can understand why my parents for the most part like had like shit on lockdown, because like when you like start like realizing that, oh, like people are fucked and they're like everywhere, then it gets like you're like, but do I even leave my house? Like what do we do?
Yeah, it's scary because you really don't know who your neighbors are. Like, you can feel safe in your little neighborhood, but you never know.
Well,
you
and that's
never
the thing
know.
too. And also, a lot of people don't check things like sex offender registries and whatever when they move to new places. They just
I know.
they move in with the assumption they're like, oh yeah, my friend lives close to here, and they love their neighborhood, and then you move in and it's like, you don't really know who's there already though. Yeah.
Spooky.
Very spooky. Should we spin for our next question?
Spin away.
All right.
What do you think is a common thing that kids get bullied for in school?
Get bullied for? I don't know. See, like, with, like, kids and being bullies, I honestly think it really depends on, like, who else is in the grade and kind of, like, what the general consensus is in the grade. Because, like, I know people who've been bullied for, like, being ugly, being too smart, liking to play video games, other random bullshit, being
I feel
antisocial.
like kids are very nitpicky.
They for sure are, and that's what I meant by like it. Like, I think it changes a lot depending on who else is like in, say, like their grade, for example. Because like if you have a class of people, and like there's one person who's like introverted, and maybe they like nerdy things like playing chess or whatever, something else random, right? And nobody else does, then all of a sudden they're the odd one out, and then all of a sudden people feel like, oh well, they're different than the rest of us, so we should pick on that person.
Yeah, or if you have like one kid who's like really tall and the rest of them are kind of like,
yeah, like right, like
average size.
Exactly, right? Or like, other random things. And I don't know, it's just different. Or even like, say like, because I know a big one that I've heard a lot is like poor. So like if you can't afford certain types of shoes or like certain types of clothes, then all of a sudden they're like, well, all of us can afford this and you can't. So like, you're trash.
Kids are so fucking mean.
Well, especially because none of them are old enough to have a job. How dare you mock me for being poor when you ain't got no goddamn money yourself?
No kidding.
But anyway, yeah, like I said, I think it's just that, and people don't seem to like people being different is, I think, the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think any like small difference, some kids can use that to like make themselves more popular, but then like some kids really can't, and they just like get fucking targeted
for sure
because of it.
Well, especially too like with the difference of like, say, like for like what I said as an example earlier, like introverted versus extroverted. I feel like if somebody is a little bit extroverted and they're like used to like managing conversations with people and like that's not like a weird thing for them, they can probably make most things that make them different work for themselves. But like if they're like fresh into the situation, they don't like to talk to people anyways. Maybe they come from like a single like child household or something where they don't really like spend a lot of time with other people. Like basically they turn into dog food, and it's so sad.
It is. Womp womp. But let's spin for our last question.
Yes. All right, let's hear it.
Were you ever bullied in school?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I'm talking from a first person perspective.
Me too.
I know, I was there.
Yeah, I was there for years as well.
Oh god. And like
that's what bonded us, the trauma bond.
Oh, probably. That was definitely to start with, I think. But yeah, well, for our listeners, so like for myself, I was bullied all throughout elementary school. Not really sure how that came about. But then when we moved into middle school and I met Jenny, the two of us would get roasted on the daily about like literally everything. And so I think at some point we were just like, fuck all you bitches. And we just hung out with each other, and life's been great ever since.
It's true. See, I was not bullied in elementary school. I feel like I wasn't like one of the cool kids, but I was like in the middle where like I could just hang out with everyone, and it was like
that's definitely neutral. Preferable though, I think, like between like having lots of attention in like a good or a bad way. Cause yeah, for me in elementary school, cause like I've even like talked with like my parents and been like, what happened? Like I'm old enough now where like I genuinely don't really remember hardly any of it, but like what do you think? And so my mom was pretty sure that actually there was like this one kid who really had it out for me. And he was really likable. So she was like, honestly, Emily, I think just because that one kid had, for whatever reason, decided that he didn't like you, that was probably the reason. Because he got along with like, everybody else, basically.
Poor little Emily.
The ringleader. And yeah, no, that's all I got, though. Because that's why I was mean by, like, difference, too. Because you honestly don't really know how kids come up with reasons to bully each other, but they are mean. I will say that. It's even like as a grown person now, listening to like my siblings or like younger cousins talk about people who are like bullying them at school. I'm like, oh my god, these kids are ruthless.
Literally, because I remember I like had a lot of friends in elementary school, and then we all went to the same middle school, but I was in a different class than all of them, and then my like best friend from elementary school moved away. So I didn't have, like, my close support, and I was thrown in with a bunch of kids who I didn't know, and I just felt like, I was like, I'm fucked from there on. In middle school,
oh, for sure,
that was not a fun experience.
Oh, God, no. And then, like, for me, the problem is that I had so many people in my elementary school who all knew who I was, that every middle school that they went to, there was already a group of people that didn't like me, and that just kind of followed me forever. Ugh,
fucking jerks.
People.
And then they come back years later when little Miss M has her full glow up because she's not wearing business casual anymore, and they're apologizing.
Literally, that was actually probably I was talking about this recently with my siblings too, because I was like, I remember for years and years like being told just like terrible things from so many people, and then all of a sudden I get like a booty, and 2 years later after high school, people are like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Sorry for being a dick to you for like 10 years of your life. And I'm like, get bent. Get out of here. Fuck all you bitches.
Oh my god, it's so terrible.
It actually makes me feel a little evil because like, I'm like, how dare you? How dare you think that like all of these years I would just write off because you think you're hot? I don't think you're hot. You think that you're hot.
Yeah. They need a reality check, because this one man that we're talking about in particular, dear audience, was mean to both of us. Yeah. And she told me that he apologized and like wanted to date her, and I was like, if you do, we will never be friends again.
Literally, Jen was like typing up the divorce papers as I was telling her the story. She's like, if the next thing I hear is that Emily went on a date with this man, friends off for life.
Literally, I was so mad. I was like, I will never forgive you.
And I honestly can't blame you either, because I remember thinking about it afterwards, and I was like, I can't even believe he would ask. And then I was like, what would it even have been like if I went? Because I was like, I know I would have had a terrible time. Like, that much is a given. I'm like,
he's horrible.
See, and like, my thing is, like, I'm like, what do you even say to somebody after you've bullied them for like 10 years and then you go on a date with them? Like, what conversation do you have? Oh, remember the time when I told everybody that you farted so hard you shit your pants outside of French class? Do you remember that? That was like so funny. And then I'd have to be like, I didn't actually think it was all that funny.
Yeah, I was not in on the gag.
Yeah, somehow for me as like the receiver, did not think it was all that funny, actually. It's bizarre, I know. Like, such a weird concept, but
I'm just a kooky, quirky girl. That's just my thing.
Super quirky, cool girl.
God.
The audacity of these people.
Well, no one will ever know. But seriously, fuck that man.
Him especially. But yes, let me think. So what is your story today? I think that somebody who was bullied as a kid grew up and started snatching children and killing them for some reason. Because he's angry about his childhood.
You're like really close, but not quite there.
I don't know then. All right.
You're like, I'll give you like a 9 out of 10 on that guess.
Hey, that's pretty close. I'll take it. But I genuinely have no idea who you're talking about today, because nothing honestly rings a bell.
All right, well, I'll tell you today. We're talking about a man, of course.
Always.
Named Robert Joseph Long. And he was born on October 14th, 1953 in Convona, West Virginia, to Joe and Louetta Long.
I love Louetta. That's a great name.
Louetta. I'm having a rough day, obviously, guys. Oh my gosh.
Under-caffeinated or over-caffeinated, one of the two.
I think both, if that's even possible.
Simultaneously, I feel that. I think that's a spiritual state of being.
Yeah, it is. But our dude Robert mainly went by his nickname Bobby, so that's how we're going to refer to him from now on. So Bobby was born with an extra X chromosome, also known as XXY, which is a specific variant of Klinefelter syndrome. This condition results in excessive estrogen production, yielding some female traits such as breast development. Bobby was teased as a child for his large breasts and underwent a breast reduction surgery and had 6 pounds of excess tissue removed from his chest. I can't even imagine the relentless teasing he probably went through.
That is so rough. Like you just said, I can't even imagine. That would be terrible.
It would. So Bobby also suffered a series of head injuries beginning at age 5. When he was knocked unconscious in a fall from a swing, one eyelid skewered by a stick. Ah!
This is somehow getting worse. I thought it was already bad to start with.
Ew, I can't even imagine. I don't even want to think about that. The following year, he was thrown off his bicycle, crashing headfirst into a parked car, with injuries including loss of several teeth and a severe concussion. At age 7, he fell from a pony onto his head, remaining dizzy and nauseous for several weeks after the accident. So his mom divorced twice during his childhood, and Bobby had a very dysfunctional relationship with her. They lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, and they shared a bed, and Bobby was apparently very resentful of his mom and her multiple short-term boyfriends that she would bring home when she returned from her late-night job. But his mom denies that ever happened, but it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah. And it's hard, too, because, like, how there's always going to be multiple perspectives on a situation as well, so, yeah.
Yeah. At age 13, he met a girl named Cynthia Bartlett, who would become his wife, and simultaneously gave up sleeping in the same bed as his mother. Shocking. At age 13. So most people in Bobby's life agreed that he was dominated by his girlfriend almost from the moment of their meeting. But his mother also kept a really tight grip on him too. People in his life kind of thought that the females apparently cooperated rather than competed with one another to control young Bobby. So what I'm hearing is he has a very dysfunctional relationships with all the women in his life.
That would check out. It also is kind of weird to me that he would choose to have a relationship with somebody who kind of has the same kind of domineering aspect on his life that his mom puts on him too. Because people seem to crave what they're used to, so it is interesting.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of checks out why him and Cynthia. I don't know for sure that Cynthia was controlling because, you know, it's always like a he said,
differing
she
opinions
said,
and yeah, for sure. But like even still, like that is normally how it pans out. So I wouldn't be shocked if there was at least like an aspect. But to have people say that they were competing or control or cooperating rather than competing is also very interesting because in most dysfunctional relationships, it's usually more of like a competition type thing. So that is an interesting point.
Yeah, it's usually like the mother like doesn't like the girlfriend and like wants to keep all the control of her little baby boy, but it's interesting that people thought that like they were almost like working together to control him.
Yeah, definitely odd, I would say.
Yeah. So Bobby enlisted in the army prior to marrying Cynthia, and he actually crashed a motorcycle 6 months later, shattering his helmet with the impact of his skull on asphalt. He was convulsing in the hospital and alternately stricken by blinding headaches and unpredictable violent rages, and he discovered a new obsession with sex. While still in a cast, Bobby masturbated 5 times a day to relieve himself and continued the practice at home despite having sex with Cynthia at least twice a day.
That is wild. So hang on, just so I can like wrap my head around this. So he had this like injury from crashing his motorcycle that like put him into like a convulsive seizure, and then he comes to in the hospital and then just immediately starts jerking off constantly. That's the oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's where we're going with that.
I have no words. That is not where I thought this was gonna go.
You know what? We love a twist. So, anyways, Cynthia and Bobby married in 1974 and had 2 children together. Bobby's new sex addiction was alive and well during this time. Despite his masturbation and sex with his wife, it still wasn't enough for him, and he soon began to search for other prey.
Icky.
Cynthia filed for divorce from Bobby in 1980 after only 6 years of marriage. And between 1980 and 1983, Bobby took his obsession to the next level and started to seek out new partners. However, he decided that he didn't need consent from these women and that he wanted to have sex with. Which is not a great move, Bobby. We don't like that.
No. The whole concept of doing things non-consensually just on a whim that's not good. That's bad vibes all over.
Terrible vibes. He terrorized the Florida communities of Miami, Ocala, Fort Lauderdale, and he became known as the Classified Ad Rapist, preying on housewives in midday attacks. So he began contacting women through the Penny Saver and other classified ads. He would then show up at their homes while their husbands were out working, ask to use their bathroom, and once he was in, he would pull out what he called his quote-unquote rape kit, which contained things like a knife that he would use to threaten the women with, and then he would bound his victims, violently rape them, and then rob their homes before he fled.
This is so disgusting, especially because he literally calls it his rape kit. So he knows what he's doing and he's getting off on that aspect of it. What a scumbag.
Mm-hmm. So Bobby had over 50 rape victims doing this. And he eventually got caught and was convicted of rape in November of 1981.
Oh, thank God.
However,
I hate this.
He did request a new trial, which was granted, and unfortunately, he was cleared on appeal through discovery of what witnesses alleging the victim's consent. So basically, he said, these women consented to this.
There's no way on earth you're going to find 50 housewives who are just, like, Gucci with some random fucker coming in their house when they need, like, shit, like, need to have stuff fixed and done, and he like, assaults them, and he's like, nah, all 50 of them asked for it.
They wanted it, I swear. I wouldn't lie to you.
Alive. Ridiculous. I can't even believe people.
So the charges were dropped, and guess what?
He did it again.
He decided to continue doing what he was doing.
Well, considering it's worked, why the hell not, I guess.
In 1983, Bobby moved to the Tampa Bay area, and in 1984, while on probation for assault, he raped and strangled 20-year-old Artis Ann Wick in March, and her body was discovered in a rural area on November 22nd, 1984. So he killed her as well, and she had reportedly hitchhiked from Gas City, Indiana to Tampa and was engaged to be married, so it was really sad for her family.
Yeah. See, that's the thing too, is like when people feel that they can do what they want and get away with it, it always ends up escalating. Every single time.
Over the next 8 months, Bobby abducted, raped, and murdered several women in 3 counties in the Tampa Bay area: Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas. His victims were 19-year-old Nguyen Thai, killed on May 13th, 1984, 22-year-old Michelle Denise Sims, killed on May 27th, 1984, 22-year-old Elizabeth Loneback, killed on June 8th, 1984, 21-year-old Vicky Marie Elliott, killed on September 7th, 1984, 18-year-old Chanel Devon Williams, killed on October 7th, 1984, and 28-year-old Karen Beth Disfriend, killed on October 14th, 1984, and 22-year-old Kimberly Kyle Hobbs, killed on October 31st, 1984. So, the bodies of the victims were typically found in a state of decomposition long after the murders, having been dumped near a rural roadside or dragged into the woods. Bobby targeted vulnerable women, including abducting women walking alone and those working as sex workers or escorts, persuading the women to enter his car where he would rape and torture them. During this period, Bobby also continued his classified ad rapes, and in May of 1984, he attacked and assaulted 33-year-old Linda Natal in her home, but luckily she actually survived this assault, which is good. That she wasn't murdered as well as being raped.
Yeah, which is a lot to say for every other person who's been going through this at this point. And, sorry, lots of things about this are making me mad, but I digress.
So we're going to quickly sidestep for a moment and talk about a woman named Lisa McVeigh Noland, who was born in March of 1967. Lisa had a really rough childhood and was the victim of abuse from a young age. She was in and out of foster care, and her mother was an alcoholic and also addicted to some other substances. At age 14, she was forced by her mother to move in and take care of her grandmother, which was not a good situation for her. Lisa said this about living with her grandma. Quote, "I was being sexually abused at home. My grandmother's boyfriend used to put a gun to my head every time he molested me for 3 years. It was nothing new to me."
Oh, disgusting.
Yes. Her grandma's boyfriend swore her to secrecy, threatening to kill her identical twin sister if she ever told anyone about the abuse, and he referred to Lisa as his girlfriend, and she said that he would also hold a gun to her head during the molestation, threatening to pull the trigger if she ever made a sound. Scared of the repercussions, Lisa followed her abuser's demands and stayed silent. But when she was 17, her grandmother's boyfriend started speaking about having a child with her. Lisa could no longer bear her life, and on the morning of November 3rd, 1984, she was riding her bike to her grandma's house after work. The night before, she had written a suicide note and planned to shoot herself in the head with her grandma's boyfriend's gun the moment she stepped through the door. She said, quote, "I went to work one day at a local donut shop, and before I left, I wrote my suicide note because I was done. I was going to end my life when I came home that night. I was going to kill myself using the gun he used to hold my head when he raped me. I was tired of everything. It was time to go." I remember writing in it, like in her suicide note, "Sometimes I wish I was a bird so I can fly far, far away." That line was used in the movie Forrest Gump, but I had it first. They stole it from me.
Aww. That's really depressing.
So content and happy about what she decided, which was to commit suicide, she, worked a double shift at the donut shop and began riding her bike home around 2 a.m. on November 3rd. Yes, November 3rd. But she actually never made it home that morning. She noticed a strange car parked outside of a church. Our pal Bobby here grabbed her off her bike from behind.
This girl cannot catch a break.
Literally. She just, hasn't she suffered enough?
Apparently not. Let's just add years of trauma and torture and then have some scumbag rip you off the side of the street who strangles all of his victims, because that's a great way to go. So Lisa screamed and filled her arms in panic as she was blindfolded and thrown into the back of Bobby's car. She cried out for life, telling Bobby, "God, whatever you do, don't kill me. I can do what you want, but don't kill me." It was then when Bobby placed the barrel of his pistol against her temple and threatened to blow her brains out that Lisa realized she didn't want to die and instead wanted to make something of her life. Aww.
So, yeah. That is
gut-wrenching. Of been going home to kill yourself because of how horrific your life is and how long you've been abused, and to find out in a moment of different horrific circumstances that you don't even want to go. That is so sad.
I know. I cry. That makes me so, so sad. So Bobby proceeded to rape and torture her for the next 26 hours. Her new lease on life, though, provided her with the strength to endure this horrific abuse while she was blindfolded and bound inside of his apartment. And Lisa, being the literal smart cookie that she is, offered to be Bobby's secret girlfriend. She then elicited sympathy from him by claiming to be the only child of an ill parent, and miraculously, Lisa persuaded Bobby into releasing her. So he did so in a remote location, instructing her to keep her blindfold on for 5 minutes while he escaped. And when she recounted the experience, she said, every minute felt like hours. But she escaped, so that was, crazy because he hadn't let any of his other victims go.
No, she'd be literally the first one.
Yeah. So, upon arriving home, she was beaten by her grandma's boyfriend and interrogated for about 5 hours about her whereabouts while he accused her of lying and cheating on him.
Ew. Grow up and fuck off. Disgusting.
Yeah, I was mad when I read that, when I was researching this case, and I read that he, literally beat her and was like, "Oh, you're cheating on me, you're such a liar," and no one believed what had actually happened to her.
He's literally in a relationship with her grandmother and is cheating on the grandmother to do, shit with her.
An underage girl.
Yeah. Disgusting. Fucking men.
That man. Terrible men. So her account remained the same, though, and finally a phone call was made to police. Lisa's grandmother, when the police arrived, even told them that she was just lying. And After some initial apprehension, the police insisted on an investigation. Lisa had committed to memorizing several details about her abduction and intentionally left fingerprints on several surfaces in Bobby's bathroom to help police identify her in the event of her death. She told every detail to investigator Larry Pinkerton, and a few days later, she was walking past the TV when she heard a news report about a potential serial killer operating in the area. A description of the suspect led her to believe that her kidnapper, Bobby, was the killer, so she contacted the FBI herself. Mm-hmm. Lisa once again recounted her ordeal, and investigator Larry Pinkerton asked if she'd be willing to be hypnotized to help jog any memories that might be lingering in her subconscious. She agreed, but her grandmother's boyfriend, who was masquerading as her father, refused to grant permission.
Barf.
Because he's the worst. Confused by the refusal, investigator Pinkerton quizzed Lisa further on her relationships with the man, which she finally revealed for the first time about the abuse that was happening from him. Mm-hmm. Her grandmother's boyfriend was arrested and died in custody shortly after, which...
That fucking sucks. He should have gotten his, proper sentencing instead of being, a pussy and dying in jail. Fuck off. I know I've been saying fuck off a lot in this story, but,
Fuck off. Lisa, meanwhile, was taken to a home for runaway teens where investigators with the FBI visited her with a stack of 6 pictures of potential culprits. Since Lisa had briefly touched her attacker's face and caught small glimpses of him beneath her blindfold, she was able to identify Bobby right away. The first picture in the pile, she said, quote, "I had no doubt in my mind the very first picture I chose was him, because he had a pockmarked face. He had a short, clean mustache, small ears, round face. I knew it was him, and I told them to stop wasting time and go get him." Through her description of her captor, his vehicle, the route they took, and other details, the police were able to track down Bobby and connect him to other crimes. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, though, after letting Lisa go, he did kill 2 other victims before the police could arrest him. He killed 18-year-old Virginia Lee Johnson on November 6, 1984, and 21-year-old Kim Marie Swan on November 11, 1984. The investigation involved personnel from Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the Tampa Police Department, the Pasco County Sheriff's Office, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and officers began a surveillance operation and arrested Bobby outside of a movie theater on November 16, 1984, for sexual assault and kidnapping of Lisa. Police were able to link Bobby to other murders through the red carpet fibers, clothing fibers, semen, ligature marks, and rope knots found on the bodies of several other victims.
I'm so tired of people who are genuine menaces getting into the police system and they're like, nah, rapists are fine. At least he's not killing people, and then they set them free, and then later on they're like, oh shit, he didn't kill anybody, but since we let him go, he's killed so many people. That's on us, guys. But actually not, because we don't want to take responsibility for our fuck up in letting him go in the first place.
So many lives could have been saved if this man had just gone to jail originally, and he fucking had 50 victims before all this, so
that's what I'm saying. It's 50 rape victims, and they were like, nah, but no deaths. He can just put his penis wherever he wants. Why do we care?
He's fine. Yeah, he's fine.
Gross.
It's infuriating. On September 23rd, 1985, Bobby pled guilty to his crimes against Lisa, and in addition to 8 counts of first-degree murder, 8 counts of kidnapping, and 7 counts of sexual battery, he received life sentences on every count in Hillsborough County. Additionally, he received a death sentence for the murders of Michelle Denise Sims and Virginia Johnson. When Bobby was executed on May 23, 2019, Lisa and the other survivor, Linda Nadal, were present. Lisa did manage to rebuild her life in the aftermath of the attack. She moved in with a loving aunt and uncle and picked up a host of different jobs. In 1994, Lisa began working for Hillsborough County Parks and Recreation Department, and when she reported a break-in at the office, the deputy who came to the scene said, "You've got the attitude to be a cop. Ever thought of that?" And in 1999, she was transferred to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office as a dispatcher and became a reserve deputy. She put herself through the police academy and deputized in 2004. She works in the same department that found and arrested her captor, specializing in combating sex crimes and working to protect children. She also works as a middle school resource officer and uses her story to teach students how to handle potentially dangerous situations.
Aww.
So, like,
this woman is she's a hero. I can't even believe after all of those years of bullshit and like just more bullshit to top it off, she like completely turned it around.
I know. I'm so happy for her.
She's honestly though, like, she deserves everything good in this world. Like,
she deserves the world.
Literally everything and anything it has to offer, she deserves it. And like, she's giving back in such a way too, because she can literally sit there and say, "Hey, I have been through it. I went through that. I'm not talking to you from an outside perspective. You like those like whatever people are struggling with. She's like, I used to be there, and I know how to help." And that is just so amazing.
I love that for her. Lisa.
I'm adding her to my hero list. We got a lot of them on there now. She's on the hero list.
We love Lisa.
We love Lisa.
Yes, but that is all for my story today.
All right, sounds good. If you liked today's episode, or at least like us, you can leave us a review on wherever you listen to podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. 5 stars does help us with reaching out to more listeners, so that would be greatly appreciated. Beyond that, we also have Patreon, which is at Wheel of Crime, if you would like to donate to the show and get a little something for your efforts. If you want to send us a message at all, you can email us wheelofcrime@gmail.com with any questions, comments, concerns, queries that you have. We love hearing from you guys. We also have our social media, which is on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Wheel of Crime. And lastly, we still have that Google document up. If you would like to submit your own listener story and feel inspired by the tales we share with you, you can submit your information on there. And yeah, I think that's basically everything.
That's it. That's all. Thanks for tuning in this week, dudes. And we'll see you next week for another new episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.